The Ajibolas lived in a cheerful 3-bedroom flat on the bustling streets of Lagos. Their home was filled with warmth, laughter, and a sense of structure that both Martin and Angela worked hard to maintain. Martin was a dedicated banker who often left home early and returned late, while Angela was the proud owner of a large supermarket on Lagos Island. Their son, Paul, was their pride and joy. At just 10 years old, Paul was bright, curious, and full of dreams about becoming an inventor one day. The Ajibolas' lives were orderly but busy. Every morning, Angela made sure Paul left for school with a packed lunch, a kiss on the cheek, and a reminder to focus in class. After school, Paul would come home, let himself in with his spare key, and spend the next few hours doing homework or watching TV until his parents returned. They trusted Paul to be responsible, and for the most part, he was. Everything about their lives felt normal until Zara moved in next door. Zara arrived one bright Saturday morning, accompanied by 2 hefty movers lugging expensive-looking furniture into her apartment. She was impossible to ignore. Her bold fashion sense stood out against the simple attire of the other residents. That day, Zara wore a sleek orange jumpsuit paired with high heels that clicked loudly against the tiled hallway floor. Her long braids swung behind her as she supervised the movers, her phone glued to her ear. Paul was the first to notice her through the window. "Mummy, there's a new neighbor," he called out excitedly, pointing to the moving truck parked outside. Angela peeked through the curtains, her brows knitting together. She looks flashy," Angela muttered under her breath. Over the next few days, Zara became the talk of the building. Her neighbors whispered about her in the corridors, speculating about her glamorous lifestyle. She rarely interacted with anyone, but when she did, her confidence was magnetic. She always left her apartment in trendy outfits, her heels clicking rhythmically as she strutted to her car. No one knew where she worked or how she afforded such luxuries, but everyone had an opinion. Angela, although curious, chose not to engage in the gossip. "Let people live their lives," she told Martin one evening when he mentioned hearing about Zara from the security guard. Martin shrugged, uninterested. "As long as she minds her business, it's none of ours." Paul, however, was fascinated by their new neighbor. He often saw her coming and going, carrying colorful shopping bags or chatting animatedly on her phone. One day, as he played on the balcony, Zara waved at him. Paul hesitated, then waved back, feeling a mix of shyness and excitement. The first real interaction between Zara and the Ajibolas happened on a Friday evening. Angela was locking the door, ready to head out for a quick grocery run, when Zara emerged from her apartment. "Hi there. I'm Zara," she said, her voice cheerful and melodic. She extended a manicured hand toward Angela, who shook it politely. "Angela. Nice to meet you," Angela replied, her eyes quickly taking in Zara's bright red dress and high heels. "And who's this handsome young man?" Zara asked, peeking at Paul, who stood behind Angela. Paul's face lit up. "I'm Paul," he said proudly. "Well, Paul, it's nice to meet you. You've got a cool name," Zara said with a wink. Paul grinned, feeling special. Over the next few weeks, Zara and Angela exchanged pleasantries in passing, but Angela remained cautious. Zara seemed friendly enough, but her flashy lifestyle made Angela uneasy. She couldn't help but wonder how Zara spent her days, as she was always home during the daytime and never spoke about work. One day, Angela and Martin found themselves in a bind. Both of their work schedules had become more demanding, and they worried about leaving Paul home alone after school for so long. Angela mentioned their dilemma to Zara in casual conversation. "Why don't I help out?" Zara offered with a bright smile. "I'm usually home during the day, and I love kids. I could watch Paul for you until you get back." Angela hesitated. The idea of leaving her son with someone she didn't know well made her uncomfortable. But Zara's friendly demeanor and eagerness to help were hard to resist. After all, Zara had a way of making people feel at ease. "I'll think about it," Angela said, still unsure. When Angela brought up the idea to Martin, he nodded thoughtfully. "If it's just for a few hours, it could work. We can always pay her to make it worth her while." The next morning, Angela knocked on Zara's door to finalize the arrangement. "I'd like to give this a try," Angela said cautiously. "But please let me know if you need anything or if Paul becomes too much to handle." "Oh, don't worry. Paul and I are going to have so much fun," Zara said with a laugh. From that day on, Zara officially became Paul's babysitter. At first, everything seemed fine. Zara greeted Paul with snacks, asked about his day at school, and let him watch his favorite cartoons. Paul was thrilled to have someone so lively and entertaining around. What the Ajibulars didn't know was that Zara's vibrant personality hid a much darker side, one that would soon begin to unravel their lives. At first, Paul was a little shy around Zara. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her flashy clothes, bright makeup, and bubbly personality were a stark contrast to his parents' reserved and orderly lifestyle. But Zara had a way of making Paul feel at ease. She was warm, funny, and treated him like a grown-up, not just a little kid. "Hey, superstar." Zara greeted him one day as he knocked on her door after school. Her voice was full of energy, and her smile made him feel important. "Are you ready to have some fun today?" Paul grinned, his school bag still hanging from his shoulders. "What kind of fun?" Zara tilted her head playfully and leaned closer as if she were about to share a big secret. "How about we make a TikTok video? Trust me, you'll love it." Paul's face lit up. He had heard about TikTok from his classmates but had never tried it. His parents weren't big on social media, and they often warned him about spending too much time online. But here was Zara, his cool new babysitter, offering him a taste of the exciting world he'd only heard about. She handed him a pair of oversized sunglasses and a glittery jacket from her closet. "Put these on," she said, her tone teasing but encouraging. "You'll look like a superstar." Paul hesitated for a moment. The sunglasses were way too big, and the jacket sparkled so much it reminded him of a disco ball. But Zara's enthusiasm was contagious, and soon he was posing in front of her phone camera as she played music from her speaker. "Okay, Paul, follow my lead," Zara said, starting a dance routine. She twirled, clapped, and spun around with ease. Paul tried to keep up, his movements clumsy at first, but soon he was laughing and dancing along. When they finished, Zara showed him the video. "See? You're a natural," she said, ruffling his hair. Paul's cheeks flushed with pride as he watched himself on the screen. For the first time, he felt cool. Zara uploaded the video to her TikTok account, and by the next day, it had gone viral. "Look at this," Zara exclaimed as Paul came over after school. "Over 10,000 views already. People love you." Paul could hardly believe it. The comments were filled with heart emojis and words like adorable and future star. He had never felt so popular in his life. Zara laughed as Paul read the comments out loud, his eyes shining with excitement. From that day on, making TikTok videos became their favorite activity. Every afternoon, Zara came up with new ideas for skits, dances, and funny challenges. She let Paul pick some of the music and even taught him how to edit the videos. "You've got talent, kid," she said one day as they watched their latest video rack up likes. "I'm telling you, you could be a star." Paul soaked up her praise like a sponge. At school, he started telling his friends about his TikTok fame. Some of them even recognized him from Zara's account. "Whoa, you're on Zara's TikTok," one of his classmates said. "She's so cool." But Zara's influence didn't stop at social media. Over time, she began introducing Paul to other aspects of her world. "You know, Paul," she said one afternoon as they sorted through her closet for another video, "you don't always have to do what everyone expects. Sometimes, you've just got to be yourself." Paul nodded, even though he wasn't entirely sure what she meant. He liked the way Zara made him feel free, like he could do anything. At home, his parents had so many rules: finish your homework, clean your room, no TV before bed. But Zara didn't have rules. With her, everything felt like an adventure. One day, Zara handed Paul a bright red jacket and a pair of ripped jeans. "Try these on," she said. "You've got to look the part if you're going to be famous." Paul slipped into the outfit and admired himself in the mirror. He looked older, cooler, more like the boys he saw in music videos. "Whoa," he said, turning to Zara. "I look awesome." "That's the spirit," Zara said, snapping a photo of him. "Now, let's make another video." "Okay," Paul said, clearly excited. "This TikTok video we are going to make today is going to be different from the ones we usually make," Zara said, smiling, but with a hint of anxiety in her voice. She set up the phone to make the video, lay on her side and guided him to her side and started telling him to touch her breast and other parts of her body. She told him to take off her clothes till she was left in her underwear. She even told him to touch her buttocks and directed his hand further until she put his hand inside a part of her body that felt wet and squishy. This went on for a few minutes. After she was done, she told him not to tell his parents that it would be their special secret, and would make them very popular. Paul hesitated. "Won't my mum and dad be mad?" Zara waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, come on. It's just for fun. They won't understand, that's why you won't tell them." "Okay," Paul said meekly and went home immediately. Paul wanted to be more popular, but deep down, he knew what just happened wasn't right. But as Zara encouraged Paul's creativity, she also began planting subtle ideas in his mind. You know, you don't always have to follow the rules, she said one afternoon. Rules are just suggestions, really. Sometimes, it's more important to have fun. Paul didn't fully understand, but the words stuck with him. Over time, he began testing his parents' limits. When Angela told him to clean his room, he shrugged and said, "It's not a big deal if it's messy." When Martin reminded him to finish his homework, Paul muttered, "Zara says it's okay to take breaks." Angela and Martin noticed the changes in Paul's behavior but didn't think much of it at first. "He's just growing up," Martin said one evening as Angela voiced her concerns. "It's probably just a phase." But the changes became harder to ignore. Paul's grades started slipping, and he became more argumentative. He spent hours in his room watching videos on his phone, sometimes skipping dinner to scroll through TikTok. Angela was particularly disturbed by the way Paul started mimicking Zara's mannerisms, like flipping his hair and using slang she didn't recognize. One evening, Angela decided to check Paul's phone. What she found shocked her. Paul had been posting TikTok videos on his own account, copying Zara's style and even wearing outfits she hadn't approved. In one video, he danced to a song with lyrics Angela found inappropriate for a child his age. When Angela confronted Paul about the videos, he defended himself. "Zara says it's fine. She says I should be myself." "Paul, you're 10 years old." Angela exclaimed. "You don't even know what that means." Paul crossed his arms defiantly. "Zara understands me better than you do." Angela was at a loss. She didn't know how to bridge the growing gap between her and her son, but one thing was clear: Zara's influence was stronger than she had realized. Unbeknownst to Angela and Martin, Zara's carefree attitude wasn't just shaping Paul's personality, it was giving her a dangerous level of control over him. What had started as harmless fun was slowly spiraling into something much darker. Paul's behavior continued to change over the weeks, but Angela and Martin were too busy with their work to fully grasp the depth of it. Angela's supermarket on Lagos Island was booming, and Martin's demanding hours at the bank left little time for either of them to spend with Paul. They assumed that hiring Zara had solved their after-school problems, but they were wrong. One afternoon, Zara noticed Paul sitting quietly on the couch, scrolling through TikTok on his phone. His usual enthusiasm seemed dulled, and he barely looked up when she walked into the room. "What's wrong, superstar?" Zara asked, plopping down beside him. "You look like someone just stole your candy." Paul hesitated. He didn't want to tell Zara about the fight he'd had with his mother that morning. Angela had scolded him for not finishing his homework, and Paul had stormed off, slamming his bedroom door behind him. "Nothing," he mumbled, keeping his eyes on his phone. Zara frowned, sensing something was off. "Come on, Paul. You can tell me. I won't get mad." Paul looked up at her, his eyes filled with frustration. "Mum doesn't understand me," he blurted out. "She's always telling me what to do, like I'm some kind of robot." "You're the only one who gets me." Zara smiled, pleased by his words. "Well, of course, I get you. You're special, Paul. Not everyone sees that, but I do." Her words felt like a warm hug, and Paul couldn't help but smile. "Thanks, Zara." "Tell you what," Zara said, grabbing her phone. "Let's do something fun to cheer you up. I've got this new idea for a video, and you're going to be the star." Paul nodded, his spirits lifting. Zara always knew how to make him feel better. But as the days turned into weeks, Zara's influence over Paul grew stronger. She began encouraging him to skip homework altogether, saying things like, "Homework is boring. It's not like you'll need algebra to be famous." She even suggested that he pretend to be sick to get out of going to school. At first, Paul felt guilty about lying, but Zara's laughter and reassurance made it easier. "Relax, superstar," she said one afternoon. "Life's too short to follow all these silly rules." One day, Zara invited Paul to her apartment instead of staying in his. Paul had never been inside Zara's home before, and he was curious. Her apartment was small but filled with shiny, colorful things, posters of celebrities, stacks of fashion magazines, and shelves lined with makeup and jewelry. "Wow," Paul said, looking around. "This place is so cool." "Thanks," Zara said, pulling out a chair for him. "Now, let's talk about your style. If you're going to be a social media star, you need to look the part." She rummaged through her closet and pulled out a pair of sunglasses, a leather jacket, and a gold chain. "Here, try these on." Paul hesitated. "Are you sure?" "Of course," Zara said, draping the chain around his neck. "You'll look awesome." Paul put on the sunglasses and jacket, feeling a surge of confidence as he looked at himself in the mirror. "I look like a rapper," he said, laughing. "Exactly," Zara said, snapping a photo of him. "Now, let's make some magic." But Zara's version of magic wasn't just about TikTok videos. Over time, she began introducing Paul to things that made him uncomfortable. One afternoon, she handed him a can of soda and said, "This is our little secret, okay? Don't tell your parents." Paul nodded, not wanting to disappoint her. But as the secrets piled up, he started feeling a knot of guilt in his stomach. He knew his parents wouldn't approve of the things Zara was teaching him, like how to sneak out of the house or how to hide his TikTok account from them. Things took a darker turn one evening when Zara showed Paul a video on her phone. It was of a teenager doing a dangerous stunt, jumping off a roof and landing in a pool below. "Cool, right?" Zara said, her eyes sparkling. Paul shook his head. "That looks scary." "Oh, come on," Zara said, nudging him playfully. "Don't be a chicken. You've got to take risks if you want to be famous." Paul didn't respond, but her words lingered in his mind. He began feeling torn between his parents' strict rules and Zara's carefree attitude. The more time he spent with Zara, the more he felt like he was living in two different worlds, one where he was just a normal kid and another where he was a rising social media star. One night, Martin and Angela were sitting in the living room when Angela brought up her concerns about Paul. "He's been acting so different lately," she said, her voice tinged with worry. "He's always on his phone, and he barely talks to us anymore." Martin sighed. "He's growing up, Angie. Kids his age are always glued to their phones." "But it's more than that," Angela insisted. "Have you seen the way he talks back to us? It's like he's a completely different person." Martin nodded, realizing she had a point. "Maybe we should talk to Zara. She's the one spending the most time with him." Angela agreed, but deep down, she felt uneasy. Something about Zara didn't sit right with her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their neighbor was hiding something. The next day, Angela decided to leave work early and check on Paul. When she arrived home, she found the apartment empty. Panicking, she knocked on Zara's door. Zara opened it with a wide smile. "Oh, hey, Angela. Didn't expect to see you." "Where's Paul?" Angela asked, her voice sharp. "He's here," Zara said, stepping aside to reveal Paul sitting on her couch, wearing sunglasses and playing a game on his phone. Angela's eyes narrowed as she looked around Zara's apartment. "Paul, get your things. We're going home." Paul hesitated, glancing at Zara, who gave him a reassuring nod. "I'll see you tomorrow, superstar," Zara said with a wink. As Angela led Paul back to their apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She decided to check his phone later that night, and what she found left her heart racing. The videos, the outfits, the comments, it was all too much. Paul wasn't just being influenced by Zara, he was being manipulated. And Angela knew she had to act fast before it was too late. Angela sat in the living room, her hands trembling as she scrolled through Paul's TikTok account. Her son, barely 10 years old, had over 15,000 followers. The videos showed Paul wearing flashy outfits, striking poses, and mimicking adult behaviors he couldn't possibly understand. The captions, clearly written by Zara, were filled with hashtags like #Slayqueen, #LivingTheDream, and #NextBigThing. As Angela dug deeper, she noticed comments from strangers, some harmless, others deeply disturbing. Her heart pounded as she realized how far this had gone. She stormed into Paul's room, where he was playing a game on his phone. "Paul," Angela said sharply, making him jump. "What is this?" She shoved his phone in his face, showing him the TikTok videos. Paul's face turned pale. "Mum, it's just for fun. Everyone does it." "Fun?" Angela said, her voice rising. "You're 10 years old. What does Zara have to do with this?" Paul's lips quivered as he looked down at his hands. She said it's okay. She said it's how I'll get famous." Angela felt a mix of anger and heartbreak. "Paul, this isn't okay. Zara isn't your parent. She doesn't get to decide what's right for you." Later that evening, Angela told Martin everything. He was furious, not just at Zara, but also at himself for not paying closer attention. "We need to talk to her," he said. "This has to stop." The next day, Martin and Angela knocked on Zara's door. She opened it with her usual bright smile, but it quickly faded when she saw their stern faces. "Can I help you?" Zara asked, her voice defensive. "Yes," Martin said firmly. "We need to talk about Paul." Zara's eyes darted nervously. "What about him? He's fine, isn't he?" No, he's not, Angela said, stepping forward. You've been encouraging him to skip school, ignore his homework, and behave in ways that are completely inappropriate for his age. Zara crossed her arms. I'm just helping him have fun. You two are so strict, he deserves a break. A break? Martin said, his voice rising. He's 10. He doesn't need a break from being a kid. And what about the videos? Do you realize how dangerous it is to put him online like that? Zara shrugged. Everyone's online these days. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal, Angela snapped. You've been influencing our son in ways we never agreed to. This stops now. Zara rolled her eyes. You're overreacting. Paul likes it. He's happy. He's a child. Martin said. He doesn't understand the consequences of all this, but you should. The argument escalated, with Zara insisting she'd done nothing wrong. You two are just boring parents who don't know how to let your kid have a little fun, she said, glaring at them. Angela took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Zara, this isn't just about fun. You've crossed a line. If you don't stop, we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. Zara's eyes widened, but she quickly masked her fear with a smug smile. Fine. Do whatever you want. But don't blame me if Paul resents you for it. That evening, Angela and Martin sat down with Paul. They explained why Zara's behavior was harmful and why he needed to stay away from her. Paul protested at first, saying Zara made him feel special and understood. But as his parents gently explained the dangers of what Zara had done, he began to understand. She said I'd be famous, Paul said quietly, tears streaming down his face. She said you wouldn't care about me. Angela hugged him tightly. Oh, Paul. We love you more than anything in the world. We just want what's best for you. Martin added, you're already special, son. You don't need Zara or TikTok to prove that. But as the family tried to move forward, Zara wasn't done. She began posting cryptic messages on social media, implying that the Ajibalas were bad parents who didn't care about their son's happiness. The posts quickly gained attention, and soon, whispers began spreading through the apartment complex. Angela and Martin decided to take things a step further. They reported Zara to the landlord and presented evidence of her inappropriate behavior. The landlord, shocked and concerned, agreed to investigate. Meanwhile, Angela and Martin also contacted the local authorities to report Zara's actions, especially her role in putting Paul online without their consent. One evening, as Paul sat with his parents in the living room, there was a knock on the door. It was the police, accompanied by Zara, who looked furious. They're accusing me of things I didn't do, Zara shouted. The officer held up a hand to silence her. We've reviewed the evidence, Posting videos of a minor without parental consent and encouraging harmful behavior are serious offenses. Paul watched, his heart pounding, as Zara argued with the officers. But no amount of excuses could save her. The authorities issued a warning and informed her that any further violations would result in legal action. As Zara was escorted back to her apartment, Paul turned to his parents. Is she going to jail? Not yet, Martin said, placing a hand on Paul's shoulder. But she won't be bothering you anymore. Paul nodded, his emotions a mix of relief and sadness. Despite everything, a small part of him still missed the Zara who had made him feel like a star. Angela hugged him tightly. You're safe now, Paul. That's what matters. But the battle wasn't over. The Ajibalas still had to rebuild the trust and communication they'd lost with their son, and they were determined to do so, no matter how long it took. The days after Zara's confrontation were quiet but tense in the Ajibola home. Angela and Martin were determined to rebuild their relationship with Paul, but the boy was quieter than usual. He still seemed torn, his feelings complicated by the whirlwind of events surrounding Zara. Angela decided it was time for a fresh start. One Saturday morning, she called for a family meeting at the dining table. Paul, she began softly, we know the past few weeks have been hard on you. On all of us. But we want to move forward as a family. We're going to spend more time together and talk more, okay? Paul looked up at her, his eyes cautious. You mean, like, no more rules? Angela smiled gently. There will still be rules, but we'll make sure you understand why they're there. And we'll listen to you more, too. If something's bothering you, we want you to tell us. Martin nodded. We're a team, Paul. We don't want you to feel like you have to hide anything from us. You're our son, and we're proud of you. Paul hesitated, then said, I liked making videos. It made me feel cool. Angela reached for his hand. And you are cool, Paul. But there are safer ways to have fun. Maybe we can make videos together as a family, ones we all feel comfortable sharing. Paul's face lit up. Really? You'd do that? Of course, Martin said. As long as it's safe and appropriate, we'll support you. The family spent that afternoon brainstorming ideas for videos. They decided to start a series about their daily lives, showcasing fun, wholesome moments like cooking together, playing board games, and sharing stories. Paul was thrilled, and for the first time in weeks, he felt genuinely happy. Meanwhile, Zara's actions didn't go unnoticed. The landlord issued her a formal warning, and she became the talk of the apartment complex. Most of the neighbors avoided her, and Zara herself seemed to retreat into isolation. Her flashy lifestyle no longer drew admiration but whispers of disapproval. One day, Angela noticed Zara sitting alone by the pool, looking lost. Against her better judgment, she approached. "Zara," Angela said softly, "can we talk?" Zara looked up, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. "What's there to talk about? You got what you wanted. Everyone hates me now." Angela sat down beside her. "I didn't want this to happen, Zara. But what you did to Paul, how you influenced him, was wrong. You need to understand that." Zara sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't mean to hurt him. I thought I was helping. He looked so happy in those videos." "Maybe he did," Angela said, "but it wasn't real happiness. He's a child, Zara. He doesn't need the kind of freedom you were giving him. He needs guidance and protection." Zara didn't respond for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't have that when I was his age. Nobody cared what I did or who I was with." Angela's heart softened. "I'm sorry you went through that, Zara. But you can't let your past hurt others. If you really care about Paul, you'll learn from this and do better." Zara nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I'll try." As weeks turned into months, the Ajibalas found a new rhythm. Their family videos gained a modest following, but more importantly, they brought the family closer together. Paul's grades began to improve, and his rebellious streak faded as he felt more understood and supported by his parents. Angela and Martin also made changes to their work schedules, ensuring one of them was always home when Paul returned from school. They realized that being present for their son was far more important than any professional achievement. Zara, on the other hand, began volunteering at a local youth center. Inspired by Angela's words, she decided to channel her energy into helping kids who felt lost or misunderstood. It was her way of making amends and finding purpose. One evening, as the Ajibalas sat together watching one of their old family videos, Paul turned to his parents and said, "I'm glad we're doing this together. It's more fun this way." Angela hugged him tightly. "We're glad too, Paul. We love you." Martin added, "No matter what happens, we'll always be here for you." And for the first time in a long while, the Ajibalas felt whole. They had faced challenges, made mistakes, and learned hard lessons, but they had emerged stronger and closer than ever. The story wasn't just about Zara's influence or Paul's missteps. It was about a family rediscovering what truly mattered: love, trust, and the unbreakable bond they shared.